special speakers in just a moment. First, we have the Executive Director of Veterans Against the Deal, Michael Pregent. Please welcome Michael Pregent.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm going to get rushed off stage because I got a senator behind me, and then I got Mr. Trump behind me. And we want to ask Mr. Trump to add our names to the list. Veterans Against the Deal, we need some money, Mr. Trump, to keep these ads going. When we speak to senators, they don't know who Qasem Soleimani is. Do you know who he is? He's the man that has been killing Americans. He's killed over 500 Americans, injured thousands. There's a lot of veterans out there that know who he is. If a senator or a politician doesn't know who Qasem Soleimani is, they can't vote for this deal. If they know who he is, they won't vote for this deal. He is the uniformed Osama bin Laden. He's the one that's going to get all this money. He's the one that's going to get to be able to buy advanced weapons. And more importantly, he's going to be able to travel to the Middle East and North Africa to continue Iran's export of terrorism. That's not a good thing, is it? When we meet with senators and congressmen, they say they're conflicted. We say, good. That means you know you're making the wrong decision. We have veterans going back to '79. We have hostages from the Iran hostage crisis. We have family members who lost Marines in Beirut. We have Americans that lost their lives and their buddies in Iraq. And we have Americans that are still in harm's way in Afghanistan because Iran continues to fund the Taliban. Veterans Against the Deal, we don't believe that any vote that has come out for this deal is a safe vote. We believe we can change minds until they actually vote. We need your help doing that. Iran is cheating every day. The administration has all the evidence they don't want that Iran is cheating every day. And Iran has all the information they need to know that this administration will not do a thing the next 16 months. We're seeing that now. I'm going to get off stage so two great Americans can follow, but thanks for your support.
Thank you, Michael Pregent. So Tea Party Patriots decided we were going to do an event on the West Lawn of the Capitol in September, back in May. And in July, a special senator who's been a friend of Tea Party Patriots since he was elected to the Senate had a coalition meeting with about 60 different groups. And he invited me to speak at that meeting, and I told him and the others that we'd be doing this event and wanted everyone to be able to participate. And so Senator Cruz has been leading the effort on this in the Senate. He's a great friend to the Tea Party movement, a great friend of Tea Party Patriots. He stands for freedom in America. And it's my pleasure to welcome Senator Ted Cruz.
We don't get fooled again.
God bless the United States of America. What an incredible gathering here today. I want to speak to three groups of people. I want to start by speaking to the American people. This Iranian nuclear deal is catastrophic. It is the single greatest national security threat facing America. If it goes through, there will be three consequences. Number one, the Obama administration will become, quite literally, the world's leading financier of radical Islamic terrorism. If it goes through, over $100 billion will flow directly to Iran, to the Ayatollah Khamenei. And billions of those dollars will go directly to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, to radical Islamic terrorists across the world. And those jihadists will use those billions to murder Americans, to murder Israelis, to murder Europeans. The second consequence of this catastrophic deal is that it abandons 4 American hostages in an Iranian hellhole, including Pastor Saeed Abedini, an American citizen, a Christian pastor, sentenced to 8 years in prison for the crime of preaching the gospel, including former Marine Amir Hekmati, including Washington Post reporter Jason Rezaian, including Bob Levinson. It is a disgrace for this administration to abandon Americans in Iranian hellholes. But the third consequence of this deal going through, if it does, is that it will facilitate and accelerate the nation of Iran acquiring nuclear weapons. There is no greater threat to the safety and security of America. There is no greater threat to the safety and security of Israel than a nuclear Iran. I agree with Prime Minister Netanyahu that a nuclear Iran poses an existential threat to the nation of Israel. And let me be clear, when he says existential, he doesn't mean a bunch of Frenchmen in black berets chain smoking. He means literally going to the very existence of Israel. When Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed a joint session of Congress, a joint session that President Obama boycotted, that Vice President Biden boycotted, that every member of the cabinet boycotted. I participated in a panel discussion with Elie Wiesel, the Nobel laureate, the Holocaust survivor. And Elie Wiesel observed the one threat on the face of the earth capable of murdering 6 million Jews in an instant, in a flash of light, is a nuclear Iran. Elie Wiesel observed, never again means never again. The second group I want to address are Democratic senators and Democratic members of Congress. Right now, today, 42 Senate Democrats have come out in support of this deal. It is my hope and prayer that every one of those Senate Democrats reconsiders, that they go home and they fall to their knees and they pray tonight. I agree with former Democratic Senator Joe Lieberman that this vote is quite likely the most important vote that any member of Congress, any member of the Senate will cast in their entire career. There was a time when there was a tradition of Scoop Jackson Democrats, of JFK Democrats, of Joe Lieberman Democrats, of Democrats who were willing to defend national security. Sadly, that is becoming rarer and rarer in today's Congress. So to every Democratic senator, they are facing a choice. Do you value the safety and security of the United States of America? Do you value standing with our friend and ally, the nation of Israel? Do you value the lives of millions of Americans? Or do you value more party loyalty to the Obama White House? To every Democratic senator who said he or she will support this deal, I ask you to consider, how will you look in the eyes of the mothers and fathers of our soldiers, the hundreds of soldiers, American soldiers, who were murdered in Iraq with Iranian IEDs that came from General Soleimani? This deal lifts sanctions on General Soleimani. Tell me, if you're a Democratic senator, how you look a mom in the eyes and say, I voted to lift sanctions on the man who murdered your son when he was defending this nation. But beyond that, when we talk about terrorism, it's worth remembering that if this deal goes through, we know to an absolute certainty, people will die. Americans will die, Israelis will die, Europeans will die. Osama bin Laden never had $100 billion. He was filled with bilious hatred and, using rudimentary tools, murdered nearly 3,000 Americans on September 11th, 2001. We're now talking about giving the Ayatollah Khamenei, a theocratic homicidal maniac who hates America every bit as much as bin Laden did, giving him $100 billion to carry out his murderous plan. I want to ask every Senate Democrat, how will you look in the eyes of the mother or father or sons or daughters of those who are murdered by jihadists, those Americans who are blown up, those Americans who are shot, those Americans who are killed, those Israelis who are murdered? And let me be clear. If you vote to send billions of dollars to jihadists who have pledged to murder Americans, then you bear direct responsibility for the murders carried out with the dollars you have given them. You cannot wash your hands of that blood. And let me say to Republican leadership, well, hold on. I come not to bury Caesar, but to praise him. I want to give a path forward. There are two men in Washington, D.C. who can defeat this deal. Their names are Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Speaker John Boehner. Under the terms of the Corker-Cardin review legislation, the clock does not begin ticking until the president hands over the entire deal, and he has not handed over the side agreements. What that means is that all that has to happen is for Mitch McConnell and John Boehner to say the congressional review period has not started. Under federal law, it is illegal for Obama to lift sanctions. Now, this is a lawless president. So the odds are significant, even if Congress did that, this president would ignore the law and try to lift sanctions. But I want in particular to speak to the CEO and the board of director and general counsel of every financial institution, every bank that is holding frozen Iranian money. If this president behaves illegally and decrees you can hand that money over to Iran, let me tell you now, that does not exempt you from the legal obligation to follow the law. And any bank that listens to this president and releases billions to an international terrorist like the Ayatollah Khomeini will face billions of dollars in civil liability and litigation. And there will come a president who is not named Barack Obama. Mitch McConnell and John Boehner can stop this deal if they simply enforce federal law. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, the single greatest risk is they would take that nuclear weapon, they would put it on a ship anywhere in the Atlantic, and they would fire it up straight into the air, into the atmosphere. They would set off what's called an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse. It would take down the electrical grid on the entire eastern seaboard and kill tens of millions of Americans. We can stop that. But if Senate Democrats decide that party loyalty matters more than national security, and if Republican leadership decides that a show vote is more important than stopping this deal, then the single most important issue in 2016 will be stopping Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. And any commander-in-chief worthy of defending this nation should be prepared to stand up on January 20th, 2017, and rip to shreds this catastrophic deal. Any commander-in-chief worthy of defending this nation should be prepared in January 2017 to look in the eyes of the Ayatollah Khomeini and say, under no circumstances does Iran, led by a theocratic Ayatollah who chants death to America, under no circumstances will Iran be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons. And if Iran will not stop its nuclear program, we will stop it for you. I want to thank everyone here for this rally. I want to thank Tea Party Patriots. I want to thank the pro-Israel groups, the national security groups. I want to thank my friend Donald Trump for joining us today. I want to thank the leaders of Congress who are here, and I want to thank the American people. Let's rise up and tell every elected official in Washington, no more talk, no more show votes. Get it done. Stop this deal. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Senator Cruz. Before I introduce our next guest, I want to just thank all of the Tea Party Patriots who are here today, who are watching on our live stream, who get our emails and who respond to our emails and help make this event possible. Thank you so much for all that you do to make these events like this possible. Thank you, Tea Party Patriots. Our next guest really doesn't need much of an introduction. Businessman Donald Trump.
It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's such an honor. I was called by Senator Cruz a few days ago, and he said, do you think we can get a really good crowd out here to protest this incompetent deal? And I said, boy, can we get a crowd. And that was 3 days ago, and look what shows up. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you. So I've been doing deals for a long time. I've been making lots of wonderful deals, great deals. That's what I do. Never, ever, ever in my life have I seen any transaction so incompetently negotiated as our deal with Iran. And I mean never. Now, Ted and everybody else have gone through all of the details, and we can talk about the 24 days, which is ridiculous. We can talk about the $150 billion, which, by the way, they get, even if the deal isn't approved, they get it just for going to the table. We can talk about the fact that we have 4 wonderful people over there, and frankly, they're never going to come back with this group. And I will say this, if I win the presidency, I guarantee you that those 4 prisoners are back in our country before I ever take office. I guarantee that. They will be back before I ever take office because they know that's what has to happen, okay? They know it, and if they don't know it, I'm telling them right now. So I have a story that just came out an hour ago, and as President Obama calls him very routinely, he calls him the supreme leader. Our president is calling the person who is really the boss in Iran supreme leader, and I look at people shaking their heads, they can't believe it. But it just came out a little while ago. He said, Israel will not exist in 25 years. Think of that. He just said this. He also said very strongly, very, very strongly, that this is the end of our dealings with the United States. We want nothing more to do with them. We're not going to do anything right here. We made this deal. It's a phenomenal deal. We're not going to deal with the United States anymore. And that's what he just said. And this was a very short period of time ago. So they rip us off. They take our money. They make us look like fools. And now they're back to being who they really are. They don't want Israel to survive. They will not let Israel survive with incompetent leadership like we have right now. Israel will not survive. And then when it's all done, or they think it's all done, they come out with these unbelievable, nasty statements that Israel won't be around in 25 years and that we have no dealings and we will have no further dealings with the United States. Now, the people that we were negotiating with and were working on the sanctions with, including, and as an example, Russia, who's selling tremendous missiles to Iran. You know that. Ballistic missiles being sold. All of these countries are going to do business with Iran. They're going to make lots of money and lots of other things with Iran. And we're going to do and we're going to get nothing. Nothing. We are led by very, very stupid people. Very, very stupid people. We cannot let it continue. We are a country that owes $19 trillion. We lose everywhere. We lose militarily. We can't beat ISIS. Give me a break. We can't beat anybody. Our vets are being treated horribly. It will change. We will have so much winning if I get elected that you may get bored with winning. Believe me, I agree. You'll never get bored with winning. We never get bored. We are going to turn this country around. We are going to start winning big league on trade, militarily. We're going to build up our military. We're going to have such a strong military that nobody is going to mess with us. We're not going to have to use it. I really, really appreciate this tremendous crowd. We are going to make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald Trump. Our next guest, while the press does their thing, I'm going to have you do one other thing as the press is doing that. Our next guest, you know from his radio program. He's a friend of Tea Party Patriots. He's a friend of the freedom movement, the liberty movement. He's written extensively about it. And what you may not know is he has a new role, and he's the editor-in-chief of Conservative Review. And you can get information from Conservative Review just by going to conservativereview.com. And just to make sure you remember that, because you're never going to because it's so hot out here, take your phone out and to the number 38470. Again, 38470. Text the word Levin. Just text Levin to 38470. That'll give you information on what he has going on. Our next guest is a friend of yours, a friend of Freedom's, and a friend of mine, Mark Levin.
Thank you for coming, except for those malcontents over there. We're here to tell the world that we, the American people, reject the cowardice and surrender by our government to the genocidal terror regime in Iran. We are here to tell the world that we, the American people, are more resolute than ever. We are more resolute than ever to destroy those who threaten to wage war against us, our society, and our ally Israel. This enemy makes a grave error in confusing the appeasement of a president and a Democrat Party and the capitulation of a Republican Congress with the strength and fortitude of the American people. Never before has a President of the United States, never before has a political party consented to funding and arming the enemy. Never before has a president entered into agreements with a terrorist regime that holds Americans hostages, that has killed and maimed thousands of American soldiers, and that seeks nuclear weapons and ICBMs to attack his own country. Barack Obama makes Neville Chamberlain look like George S. Patton. This phony deal allows the Iranian terrorist regime to inspect its own nuclear sites, to continue uranium enrichment, to build advanced centrifuges, to perfect their ICBMs, to spend $150 billion on terrorism, and in the end, to secure nuclear warheads. And as one Democrat after another, one conga line of Democrat after another, supports this surrender, it's clear that the Democrats no longer represent the party of Harry Truman and John F. Kennedy. It's now the Democrat Party of Bill Ayers, Saul Alinsky, and Barack Obama. And the Democrat Party will have blood on its hands as a result of this deal for the rest of time. And let me be clear, this deal sows the seeds of war. The enemy is emboldened, and the enemy will be well armed. Domination. How do we know? They told us so. Well, what are the Republicans? The Republicans join us right now. You see that scaffolding up there? They should take some of that and use it on their damn spines. The Republican Party, particularly the leadership, has abandoned the Constitution and the treaty power of the United States Senate. It is recklessly and deliberately avoiding any serious confrontation with a disastrous imperial president. They can stop this. They can invoke the treaty clause. They can suspend the sanction now. They can stand between Obama and the Iranian terrorists and our allies, but they won't. It's the party of Dwight David Eisenhower. Gone is the party of Ronald Reagan. Instead, we get the party of McConnell and Corker and Boehner. Tell the Republicans this is Obama. It's about Americans' interests and the future generation. And a final word. Let me warn the 7th century throwbacks who like to chant death to America in their home. We Americans have been threatened by better than you. We Americans have been threatened by forces far stronger than you. And we've obliterated every damn one of them. The American people do not stir quickly. USA. And so they can hear us in Tehran. American people do not stir quickly. But when we do stir, you will regret it. Tell the Republicans in Congress it's time to step up, enforce the Constitution, and stop this fraudulent deal. And God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you so much, Mark Levin. I'm going to introduce to you someone who's going to be helping me with the emceeing. This is Andrew Langer. He's with the Institute for Liberty. He's helped with these events before, and I'm really appreciative for him stepping up very quickly late last night or early this morning to help out. And I just want you to know who he is because he's going to be filling in just a moment. Our next speaker is, thank you, is Penny Nance with Concerned Women for America.
Ladies, let me hear you. Are you here? We are here, Concerned Women for America. We're the nation's largest public policy women's organization. And as smart women, we oppose this deal. Are you with us? Are you with us? Let me hear you. Our state directors, our ladies, have come to Washington. Most of them are volunteers. They left their businesses. They left their children at home, and they're here on the Capitol, in the Capitol, talking to their members of Congress, talking to their senators, and urging them to oppose this deal. We are with you. We are fighting this. This is about safety. We are women of faith. We are women who love our families. We are women who love our country. And we can't pass up this pivotal moment in history to make our voices heard. This is an Esther moment. You have got to make your voices heard. Listen, I just got back from Israel, and I was reminded what happens when women of faith do not speak up. I was honored to tour Yad Vashem, their Holocaust museum. What would have happened if in 1933 women of faith had stepped up and said no? What would have happened in 1934 when the St. Louis begged to come into our shores if we had stepped up and said, let them in? What would have happened? We don't know what we would have done if we had been born, but we are here now. We are speaking up for tiny Israel who is threatened by this deal. Do you like Israel? Do you love Israel? Let me hear you say it. Israel! 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 Mr. President, you may have forgotten your promises, but we have not. And we will stand with Israel. Join us. This is a bad deal. Tell him it's a bad deal. Bad deal. Bad deal. Vote no. Thank you.
Well, we need to always get context in this. Before I do this, I just want to say, you know how I know God is on our side right now? It's because the sun is behind those clouds. So thank God for that. Our next speaker will give us some greater context in all of this. He's a former director, Central Intelligence, and I want to make sure I get this correct. He is the chairman of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Jim Woolsey.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you today. This agreement that is being discussed is not an ordinary agreement. It is not an agreement where the two parties actually negotiate and there's quid pro quos and deals here and there. No. We are the subject of an attempt to get us to submit. Iran is totally about the business of requiring submission. And they do it with dominance, they do it with money, they do it with terrorism, and they are in the process of moving to be able to do it with nuclear weapons. We have to stop this. As Iran moves into having nuclear weapons, and it will, I believe, within a very short period of time, it will be able to intimidate its neighbors. We will have an arms race in the Middle East in which we have 4, 5, 6, 7 countries next time around who all have nuclear weapons, and the possibility of terrible destruction is imminent there in those circumstances. We have a situation in which Khamenei controls nearly $150 billion provided to him by the actions of our government. And you know, 150 billion here, 150 billion there, before you know it, it adds up to real money. What is going to happen in these circumstances? We will find that the world is extremely dangerous from day to day, not occasionally, not sporadically, but day to day. How can we do something about this? The Corker legislation that passed last May had one terrible feature and one lucky feature. The terrible feature is that it gave to President Obama the ability to implement this agreement by getting merely 1/3 plus 1 of the Senate in support, instead of the 2/3 that should have been required under the Constitution. But since that happened, there is also something else in the Corker legislation that is a gift, and if we use it, we can stop this negotiation. The Corker law creates a situation where you need only to be able to have 100 people in support, and the music starts, and I'm afraid we'll have to conclude at some other point. It's all right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Woolsey. All right, next is a former governor of Virginia, Jim Gilmore.
Well, good day to all of you all. I am Jim Gilmore, the former governor of the state of Virginia. Now, I'm supposed to stand up here now and say hooray, hooray, and then get back off the stand. So I'm going to tell you more than that. The deal is bad. It stakes everything on trust that Iran's going to change its direction. Many statements have been made by the Iranians' radical leaders, even as soon as yesterday, that the deal changes nothing in their eyes. It says that America is still the hated enemy. Death to America remains their slogan even to this very day. The deal doesn't change Iran's plans for advancing their cause in the Middle East. It frees them to create a nuclear weapon after a pause. It telegraphs danger to Iranians' neighbors. It gives Iran money. It probably gives them missiles. It enables them to threaten Israel. The deal does not create peace. It only postpones war. Now, President Obama says we have no choice. Well, if we have no choice, it's because he's negotiated us into a no-choice position. America is never in a no-choice position. This is America. We remain the most powerful and influential nation on earth. We can still use our power and influence to find a better way. And don't let them tell you that we've been abandoned by our allies, so we have no other choice. We have plenty of allies out there if we will just stand up and lead. This vote in Congress matters. Your presence here today, my presence, all of us today, it matters. We can't fix this problem in the future unless we have a vote of disapproval now. This is a treaty. This is a treaty and should be subject to a two-thirds approval under the Constitution. But because of the Corker Amendment that Mark Levin was talking about, we're now required to get a majority to disapprove it. 60% to block, 60 votes to block a filibuster, and 2/3 to overcome Obama's veto. Where was the congressional leadership to use all of its congressional power and leverage to make the president obey the Constitution? All four of the senators at the national stage today voted for the Corker Amendment. All four. We should demand more backbone than this. Show a little leadership up there on Capitol Hill. Show a little backbone. Stand up to this deal. The deal is not the end of the Iranian danger. It's the beginning. I believe that we have to show the leadership and experience to prepare us for the coming crisis. If the deal continues to threaten our future, it will be altered or discarded in the future. The congressionally opposed sequester has to come off the defense budget. The American Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force must be rebuilt to confront the threats that we now face. A new NATO must be created in the Middle East with American leadership to block Iran's expansionist ambitions. The same new NATO must be engaged to deal with the rise of barbaric and barbarism like we see with ISIS. Countries in the Middle East will follow if we lead. And this is where presidential leadership must be spending its efforts, not into succumbing to deals like this one. Now, there's nothing wrong, ladies and gentlemen, with diplomacy if the right people are conducting diplomacy. Not the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who took no action to deter the danger they were in. Not Secretary of State John Kerry, who became so desperate for a deal that he lost sight of the big picture dangers that this very deal has set in motion. For diplomacy to succeed, it has to be backed by America's ability to credibly use force. It can't succeed with presidential leadership that sets red lines and backs off, with presidential leadership that apologizes, by equating ISIS barbarism to the Christians of the Crusades. The president sent a message of weakness and a lack of conviction in our nation. You might recall, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, when the president made that statement about the Christians in the crusade, I said that was the worst thing I'd ever heard a president say in my entire life. American leadership is indispensable. Without American strength and decisiveness, the Iranian, Russian, and Chinese threats and the threats of terrorism abroad and at home will grow until America's very life is threatened. I'm committed to American safety and to American leadership. And this rally shows that it is not too late. Thank you very much for the chance to be here with you.
Thank you very much, Governor Gilmore.